The first thing we need to do in CUBASE after installation is set up the audio and MIDI functionality. This can be done under the Devices menu and then pick Device Setup. To the left you can see the MIDI, Transport, Video, and VST Patch Bay headings. For this tutorial we are only concerned with the MIDI and audio options. Under MIDI we have all MIDI inputs. This is when you are ready to record MIDI in CUBASE and choose the option All MIDI Inputs. This is the list where you can pick which inputs will be used for all MIDI inputs. We can deactivate some of the inputs if we know we are never going to use them. For example, I won't need the HDSP MIDI in. Now when we pick all MIDI inputs, only this MIDI input will be chosen. Whenever you make changes and then switch to another section, this dialog box pops up asking if you want to apply these changes. For default MIDI ports, you can pick which MIDI port you want CUBASE to choose when you add a new track. I'm going to pick this one. For the MIDI output, I'm just going to leave it as not connected. Under Direct Music, you can specify which MIDI ins and outs will be shown. If you have a large list of MIDI ins and outs, and you know you only want to use one or two of them, you can hide them here. The active column tells you if any ins or outs are currently being used. I know I won't be using these three outs, so let's not show them. And I won't be using this input either. Now the MIDI ins and outs list is shortened. Moving on to the VST audio bay, we can pick our audio driver here. Instead of using the generic multimedia driver, I want to pick a dedicated ASIO driver that came with my sound card. You should do the same if your audio card has one. This section tells me the total input and output latency. This is basically the time it takes the audio to be processed through your audio card into CUBASE and back out. The latency is usually set by an external software control panel that comes with your audio card. If you're using other audio programs and are switching between them while CUBASE is running, you can release the ASIO driver so that your other application can use it by checking this on. Otherwise, leave it off. If the latency on your audio card is higher than 6 milliseconds, you may need to turn direct monitoring on. This allows the audio to come into the sound card and right back out so that there is no delay. Otherwise it goes into your sound card, gets processed through CUBASE, and then gets sent out. There are some extra options in the Expert Settings window that you can read up on by pressing Help here. Everything is well explained. Almost 99% of the time, you won't need to change any of these options. Once you select your audio driver, it appears below. Once clicked, you can then access things like Clock Source and the software control panel that I mentioned earlier. This panel is exclusive to my audio card. You'll have a different one for your audio card. For the VST inputs and outputs, you can make them visible or not. This is like hiding or showing the MIDI inputs. I have 18 ins and outs on my audio card. Chances are I'm only going to use the first 8. I might want to make the others invisible by turning their visible status to no. You don't have to do this, but it certainly cleans up the clutter and helps you select your ins and outs a lot more quicker. That's it for the basic setup of audio and MIDI ins and outs.